everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we are going to talk about meaning, about purpose. We are going to mix two of those topics that I find very hard to mix, psychology and spirituality. So let's get this going. Now, I don't know about you, but religion never really cut it for me. And very often when exploring spirituality and the communities that are associated with spirituality, we often find ourselves having to believe many extremes, and I think that really defeats the purpose of faith. Now, belief, faith, these are innate components to the human experience, to the point that I would definitely categorize them as some sort of psychological needs. Because think about it, human beings are wired to search for patterns, to search for meaning, to search for something to orient themselves towards. And if you're going to look at our history, you will see that this makes a lot of sense. Humans at the end of the day survived through storytelling. They survived through learning from their elders, to the point that if you study cognitive behavioral therapy, but not only, you will see that one of the first things that they teach you is that human beings are meaning-making machines. That was because it was essential for us to learn through storytelling, because that's how we remembered what mattered. Like a story about someone being killed by eating the wrong berry was far more impressionable than an entire list of berries that are safe to eat, if it makes sense. So stories made survival knowledge stick. But with evolution, the human brain needed bigger explanations for bigger questions, and many of which were not as easy or evident as which berry kills you, but rather why sometimes rain helps the crops, while other times it comes in the form of a tempest and kills the crops. Just to give a very silly example. And you see, this is how we started to tell stories about gods and about higher powers, and why the very idea of sacrifice was invented to begin with, why traditions started to take form. But also it explains why we gave meaning and purpose to everything around us. The thing is, once everything has a role and a meaning, once we have established that the sun gives life, once we have established that the gods demand something, and everything has a reason and a why to exist, of course the question comes back to the one asking all the other questions, right? If everything has a role around me, then what about me? You see, that's what pushed humans to seek answers about purpose and life, meaning beyond just survival. You see, many don't see it as such, but even the mere fact that we were able to start focusing on the meaning of life, on purpose, is an indication of a certain type of a post-survival stage. In psychology, in fact, we often associate this with a certain type of self-actualization. If you have the Maslow pyramid in mind, or maybe I'm just going to put it here on screen. This need for faith was also later studied and confirmed by different branches of psychology too, which showed that meaning is as essential to us as food, as shelter, because without it, we kind of fall into despair, guys. Now, based on all of that, we can definitely understand that faith doesn't have to do anything with God, nor it should be, to be honest, but it has to become about giving our mind a structure to reduce the chaos and help us move forward with purpose. Now, where I struggle is to make sure I maintain a balance between facts and feelings, because, faith is a feeling, and therefore the way we experience it and explain it tends to be very different. So what I will aim to do in this deep dive is to give you a story you could potentially believe in, but keep in mind this is not the truth. This is a truth, as this is the beauty of beliefs. They're infinite based on your imagination and experiences. So I'll try to help you build your own story based on maintaining balance and well-being for your mental health at the same time. So you know what? Without further ado, let us start.
All right, let's try something else.
Let's try anything else, to be honest.
1, 2, 3.
I don't think counting is going to help. Well, depends. Wow, they're so bored. Wow, they're really giving him nothing. Okay, so let's pause already, because I think there's something very important to be discussed about here. So you see, this kind of reminds me of a priest in front of their community, They might be up there giving their absolute all, but in the end, the audience sooner or later ends up looking like these kids. So many people are passionate about certain topics, right? And they could be also amazing at teaching them and inspiring others, much like Joe could definitely be one in here. But but they often fail to do so for one big reason: narrative psychology. As I said before, humans process information, yes, but at the core of it all, we attach meaning to those information. Therefore, we end up with a story. So you see, if the story isn't one the students can identify with, then it won't feel relevant for them. So their lack of care here doesn't have to be about music itself. It has to be more about not recognizing themselves in the narrative, maybe in the song they're playing. So we get already to the first lesson on meaning and purpose. There isn't a right and a wrong one, except of course when it comes to harming the self and others. But if you want to share that purpose, that meaning that you find, you're gonna have to also learn how to attune to the rest of the people. And this is important because you will see that nowadays we live in a society where if someone is trying to attune to you, it's usually to sell you something or convince you of something. And so when that type of society becomes the norm, the whole system of purpose and faith kind of becomes shallow. Because you see, instead of creating meaning, like in this case, it creates consumption, much like Joe. You want people to follow the story, but when people start chasing a story that's marketed to them instead of building a story that actually resonates with who they are, they end up exhausted. They end up bored, which is what we see on a societal level, don't we? And also in Joe's class. We have burnout, disillusionment, we have a lot of cynicism, depression. All of these are higher than ever, and we can kind of see them on the kids' faces in Joe's class. You see, I think that many people feel lost because they're being told what should give them purpose, only to realize that it actually doesn't. And it doesn't because it never belonged to them to begin with. Okay, girl. Okay, she's getting into it, everyone. Why are we making fun of her? Guys,
Hang on.
yeah, so let's stop right there because I think that we can already talk about something else. There are two problems here. For once, Joe obviously relates more to Connie than any other student in his class, and that is not fair. Right there, from someone who is supposed to guide all of these kids. Why? Because when a teacher or any guide kind of singles out one student as the one who gets it, what happens is that the others internalize that, well, this isn't for me then, because I'm not as good as this other person. You see, instead of inspiring them, it could very well reinforce also more disconnection, and that makes purpose feel kind of exclusive, like it belongs only to those who have the spark, when in reality, everyone has their own version of it in different areas. And this actually brings us to one of the problems with organized religion. In most of them, there is always a right and a wrong, a black and a white, but life is really made of the nuances that exist between these extremes, right? Ironically, once you put together the two extremes and then the middle way that you are going to choose, it kind of creates a trinity. And I'm only mentioning this just to show how symbolism and psychology go very well hand in hand. Both ways are giving shape to things we can't fully grasp. Symbolism, for instance, can often translate very complex, often unconscious experiences into images or rituals. It makes them a little bit more digestible, while psychology translates them into frameworks and theories. In the end, both are kind of attempts to make the invisible visible, if it makes sense, to make meaning out of what we feel, but we can't quite explain. And for a second issue, Connie is taken over by her passion, yes, but the reaction of the class is to kind of, I don't know, judge her, laugh at her. I don't even know how to categorize this. Now, why would they do that? Well, they're kids, so there's a certain natural aspect to their behavior, but there's also something more at play here. People often mock what they don't understand or what also feels too vulnerable to handle. Truth is, passion kind of makes us naked in front of others because it shows what we truly care about. We cannot pretend anymore that we don't care, and that level of authenticity can be very uncomfortable to witness. So laughing becomes kind of a defense, a way of distancing themselves from their own vulnerability. At least this is how I see it here.
I remember one time my dad took me to this jazz club, and that's the last place I wanted to be. But then I see this guy, and he's playing these chords with fourths on it, and then with a minor. I was like, whoa.
Ooh.
Then he has the inner voices, and it's like he's singing.
Man, that sounds amazing.
I know it's like he floats off the stage. That guy was lost in the music. He was in it. and he took the rest of us with him.
Flow is amazing, isn't it? Oh, wow, look at this.
And I wanted to learn how to talk like
Do you see what's happening here?
I knew I was born to play.
There we go. He's doing something brilliant here, and it's exactly what...
12.
Okay, let's not do that. So this is exactly what we were talking about before, you know. In this scene, Joe is attuning to his students. He's speaking about his story, about how it felt for him to find music, and as a result, he's able to attune to them, which is what brings them in. Do you see that? Whereas before they were bored, now they're actually very interested. Guys, truth of the matter is that there is an infinity of hobbies and passions and things you could be obsessed with. Some will remain forever, some will accompany you for a season, some might come back cyclically, you never know. But what you need to always remember is that nobody will ever experience them like you. And that can be a very lonely feeling, because for a very long time the individual was seen as less than the community, and therefore that feeling of isolation has kind of become a confirmation that we are doing something wrong, rather than seeing this as a solo exploration of a realm nobody has access to but you. You know, there are many spiritual practices that teach some very valuable things about that specific chosen loneliness. In Buddhism, for instance, we have this practice of learning to face your own mind without distraction, and we call it meditation. In Sufism, whirling is a journey into the inner world where no one else can follow. And even in modern psychology, we see echoes of these practices, like mindfulness, or in existential therapy, where the individual is invited to embrace the fact that no one can live life for them, essentially. One of my certifications is in Gestalt psychotherapy, and in there we find the concept of field theory, where both inner and outer spaces count just as much, with the particularity that external people only have access to one of them, one field, the external one, while the individual is the only one that has access to both. Therefore, the only one capable of painting a full true picture of their own needs, desires, and so on is the individual. But that right there is just proof that your spark is yours alone, not necessarily that you're isolated, all right? It just means to make sure that you're not forcing others to feel exactly as you do, but learning how to share your inner world in a way that connects you to other people. Exactly like Joe does here. His students don't care about jazz until he stops trying to make them care and simply shares how music made him come alive. So what he's doing is that by translating this inner experience into a story, into a whole experience, he bridges the gap between his world and theirs. So if you're struggling with purpose, remember, it doesn't have to be validated by others. Your role is to simply explore that chosen loneliness, then find ways of telling your story so it resonates. But if you never choose to experience your inner world intentionally, you'll always try to get the validation from the outside, as Joe does when he's trying to relate to a 12-year-old world. Okay, so if you're also struggling with that, I have prepared 3 exercises. You can find them in the workbook attached to this deep dive on meaning and purpose. It's at page 1.
I'll be right back. Practice your scales.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Gardner.
Oh, don't.
Doing my ears a favor.
Same here.
You though, you're good. He's not. What can I do?
I don't know if that attitude helps you, Joe, but hey.
News personally.
What good news?
No more part-time for you.
Ooh.
Full-time band teacher.
Yeah.
Job security, medical insurance, pension.
Wow.
Why aren't you happy?
That's great.
Welcome
He's
to
not
the
happy.
MS-70 family, Joe. Permanently.
Oh,
Thanks.
he's not very happy about the permanence of it all. Okay, how about we pause here, because I think this is also very important to speak on. I think this is a good portrayal of Valorant's dualistic model of passion. We get obsessive passion when the activity kind of dictates your life, it's in control, and it feels like the only thing that gives your life some meaning. And then we have harmonious passion when the activity enriches your life, but it doesn't define your entire existence either. Joe clearly leans in the obsessive side, if anyone was wondering. wondering? Now listen, even if your dream is to be a musician, why is job security making you so depressed? You guessed it, it's because of the story we tell ourselves. Yes, it's the meaning we give something. I'll say something very controversial for some of you, and you don't have to believe it either, but it might help you. Life has no meaning, and that's by design, in such a way to make sure everyone gets to explore their individuality. What I mean with that is that if life came with one fixed purpose, we would all kind of be stuck following the same script, and I think individuality as a concept would vanish. By not giving us the ultimate answer for the entirety of our existence, life kind of forces us to create our own, to experiment, to change our minds, to give shape to whatever spark feels most alive in the moment. That's why living in the moment is so important, and that's what makes purpose personal and not universal, by the way. You see, Joe here, instead of seeing the stability of tenure as a trampoline from which his dreams could spring, he sees it as proof that he's drifting further away from his meaning. And that's the danger of confusing meaning with obsessive passion. After all, you end up making your entire existence about one single narrative, and anything that doesn't fit your imaginary scenario feels like a failure. This is a very rigid mindset, and the rigidity seldom helps. In reality, stability is a foundation, and it should be seen as such. So the problem isn't the tenure in itself here. The problem is the meaning Joe attaches to it, you see. The story he tells himself about it. And you see, this is the key here, because it's never the event itself that defines us. It's the meaning, it's the story we tell about it that does that for us. That's why people can go through the same thing and experience them absolutely different. There are several ways in which you can rewire your brain in order to find the best meaning you can attach. It does require a lot of work on your belief systems, but you know what? This is where I can give you some exercises to address that. In the workbook attached to this deep dive, you will find 5 exercises to reframe meaning, but just keep in mind that it could be particularly challenging to work on them on your own without a professional. Oh God, Joe, you're so sad about it. It doesn't mean that you're that you're further away from your dream, It just
all these years, my friend.
well, someone's happy.
A full-time job.
It's the mother, isn't it?
You're going to tell them yes, right?
Don't worry, Mom. I got a plan.
You always got a plan. Maybe you need to have a backup plan, too,
Okay.
for when your plan falls through. A backup plan never hurts. Joey, we didn't struggle giving you an education. So you
Ooh,
could be
here
a
it comes.
man washing your underwear in my shop. Walking around with a hole in his pants.
Yeah, but
With this job, you'll be able to put that dead-end gigging behind you.
Wow,
And Lord
these
knows
are harsh
what
words,
teaches in
lady.
this world. And just think, playing music will finally be your real career.
I mean,
So you're going to tell them yes, right? Please say yes.
yeah, definitely.
Good.
okay, let us speak about this interaction because I think it's very important. What we see here is 2 forms of purpose colliding, which ironically might explain the conflict between generations. You see, Joe's mother can easily represent the survival stage of purpose, where meaning is tied to stability, it's tied to safety, and therefore predictability. So she probably has lived times when protection was most important, and without it, there would be no space for anything else. So paying bills, keeping her family safe, having a steady life might be the indicators that she's in alignment with her purpose. So of course, when she sees her grown-ass son bringing his underwear to her for washing and fixing, this kind of looks like a failure in her eyes. And so the clash happens when she also desires the same things for her son, without realizing he is unable to share her idea of meaning and purpose because he doesn't have her experience, and because she keeps mending and washing his underwear. Like, lady, come on, honestly. If you want him more independent, it's time to finally say no from time to time. But anyway, chances are that he didn't have to worry about surviving as much as his mother, and therefore Joe can represent the self-actualization stage of purpose, where meaning is tied to expression and individuality. It's tied to aliveness, if it makes sense. So that's his sole focus, you see, becoming fully himself in the branch he prefers, even at the cost of risks. And so the tension rises when each believes their idea of meaning is the right one. And so they end up judging each other instead of listening to each other. You see, they're judging each other's idea of purpose. From a psychological point of view, this is a values conflict. This is how it's called. Each operates from a different motivational hierarchy, as shown in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You see, the healthy opposite of this scene would be Joe learning from his mother that stability isn't the enemy, that he might want to update the way that he relates to this concept in a way that makes sense for him. And his mother could learn from Joe what it means to live outside of survival and let intrinsic motivation and passion take over from time to time. And I think this also ties to why community is crumbling nowadays. We don't learn from each other anymore. And what I mean with that is that we don't enter conversations with the intention of getting to know the other and ourselves anymore. Oftentimes we socialize to either distract ourselves or to convince the other person of our own beliefs. And by doing so, we seek people that only validate us, people that only agree with us, and we call it protecting our peace, or at least many of us do. And so this is how we end up like Joe and his mother, trying to constantly prove to each other we're right without ever actually connecting. An advice I usually give in sessions to my clients is to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs before an interaction with another person and decide what is the most appropriate level to relate from. If you're about to enter a business meeting, it could be that esteem is the layer you want to tap into. If you hang with family, you might want to tap into the love and belonging plus a little bit of esteem so we don't go all the way into people pleasing. Or if your family is not safe, we're gonna have to go really to the safest and most basic interaction, right? And intentions. Keep in mind this pyramid was not made with this purpose in mind, okay? But I found in my work with clients that it can be golden, guys.